Experience the most efficient system for delivering sulfur and phosphate to meet your crop's needs with Smart Nutrition MAP plus MST.
Good day, and welcome to Wheat Pete's Word here on Real Agriculture for Wednesday, September the 4th. On this episode of The Word, harvest is here. Wow, that seems early. Meanwhile, there is incredible Plant 25 excitement. That is so cool. Hey, wait a minute. No. I am not all doom and gloom. That's the way some people took the start of last week's episode. Got to change that. Some new genetics we now get to talk about. They're registered in the wheat world, and that's exciting as heck. And agronomy answers at the end of the tape. Let's go! You just gotta love technology. I talked to my phone as I was driving because I'm not like that's, you just want to talk, you don't want to text or whatever. Safety. And my phone didn't quite catch who I said, and I made a call to the wrong Greg. That Greg didn't answer, so I thought, oh good, I didn't bother him, and I just hung up, realized that I made that error. And that Greg texted me back and said, Peter, you see I missed a call from you. Is everything okay? I said, yeah, Siri got it wrong. And he texted back, oh, I was worried that you were calling me for your Wheat Pete's 15. Two things. First off, Greg, thanks for the reminder. Wheat Pete's 15, yes, do it. But also, why were you worried? Because even for people that feel great, and remember that Wheat Pete's 15 really is about just checking in to make sure that everyone's mental health is okay. And as we get into harvest, there's lots of stressors out there. There's just lots of financial stress, lots of issues. So this making sure everybody is okay, being part of our agricultural community that supports one another is really, really critical. Having said that, if you call somebody that is just perfect, is having a great day, they will have even a better day after you call them. So take the time, pick up the phone, Wheat Pete's 15. I haven't talked about it in a little while. There is your reminder. Greg, thank you for that. And yes, harvest is right upon us. Mark at Ripley's soybeans that are basically ready to combine. Tweeted a picture out of them this morning. They're very, very close. That's incredible. Lots of growers talking about corn silage going to be going in the next, 7 days, 10 days, 2 weeks. We'll see. Be a little careful, because early harvested corn silage is often wetter than you think, wetter than it looks. You probably want to have the milk line more than 50%. Make sure you do the moisture test, because it's better if you don't put it up too wet, that's for sure. A little drier sometimes is better than too wet. But how is it that we're here? Well, Nick sending me his weather information. We are 150 crop heat units ahead of the 10-year average. That's 6 days basically ahead of the 10-year average. So that makes some sense that, silage is going to be early, soybeans going to be a bit, but wait, stop. Because Nick points out that the vast majority of that increase above normal came in May. There was a lot of crop that did not get planted in May, and it doesn't benefit, as Nick points out, you don't get any benefit from extra heat with the seed still in the bag. So certainly not everybody is early, but man, there is some early harvest stuff going down out there. Edible bean burndowns, we'll talk about that in the agronomy section. Yes, harvest is right here, and that's a great time of year because you get to see the fruits of your labor. Meanwhile, we are at Plant 25, and there's just incredible excitement. The number of tweets about winter canola being planted, winter barley being planted. There's even been demand for winter wheat. That is way cool. Brett finishing his winter barley planting, I believe, on September the 3rd. That's crazy early. Don't forget, please, manage early planted crops. With winter canola, we really would like to have them in the winter canola in this, the first few days of September across pretty much the entire province, which is interesting. With winter barley and winter wheat, when you plant ultra early, you really do need to manage seeding rate and you need to manage fall fertility, and we will talk about that. But manage. It really is important. Okay, I want to move on. And last week, I talked about some parts of the world that had tough wheat. Their wheat yields, France at 50%. And a couple of people have said to me, boy, Pete, you were just all doom and gloom about wheat last week. Whoa, stop. Wheat, Pete, is never doom and gloom about wheat. Full stop. Just the way that it was turning out in those areas. So just to counter that, man, Noah from Australia sent me an email. He is having his best ever wheat crop, and he actually listens a bit to Wheat Pete, which is kind of interesting because that's in Australia. That's a half a world away. But he just wanted to reach out and say, yeah, some of the things you talk about, we're trying them here. They are working. They are rocking. Australian wheat production. That is very cool. So not everywhere is down and out. In fact, the yield tours are coming back with many areas of the province looking like they will have record soybean crops. Several counties looking like they will have over a 60 bushel per acre yield average. That is really incredible. And as well, I talked about tomatoes, and my great friend Ed said, Peter, what are you doing? Like with late blight, do not give the suggestion that there's nothing growers can do, because if they walk away from that crop, it will be devastating. Late blight can wipe a crop out in just a few days. Ed telling me that they found late blight July the 5th. They immediately alerted all their growers. They put them on a very tight spray schedule. And as long as you stay on that tight spray schedule, you can keep ahead of it. Ed did say there's growers that have had trouble getting on top of it, but they're fighting it, and they will get a respectable crop out of the field as long as they never take their foot off the gas. So that is a great story. Really what it does for me is remind me that, man, you almost never want to just walk away from a crop. Even some of the edible bean crops that this spring had, the 4, the 5, the 8-inch rains right after planting. And we looked at them and said, man, they are not going to be a very good crop. The good parts of those fields, they have done way better than we anticipated. So whether it's wheat that you plant too late in the fall, edible beans that get pounded with rain, you just still want to manage them. Making the best agronomic decisions mostly is doing everything you can for that crop until harvest, if you can at all. Meanwhile, there are some areas, just because it's not all roses, Mark in Delmarva sending me his corn tour from that Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area. The corn down there is in pretty tough shape. They've got insect issues, they've got some disease issues, they've got too much drought, and so, yep. Not roses just everywhere from that perspective. Okay, I got to move on. And yes, so I talked last week that we couldn't give you the data on unregistered wheat varieties. Well, guess what? 2 varieties, very exciting varieties, 25R65 from Pioneer and Grow 08 from Snowball and Seeds, got registered last Friday. Already, we have updated the information on the Go Crops website, so 2 more varieties to absolutely consider to put in your test plot. They've got high yield, they've got some great agronomy behind, I think, both of those. Worth looking at, that's for sure. Cool that we can get them in our plots this year. All right, going to move on to agronomy answers, and first up is burn downs on edible beans. So, couple of things. Remember that for most of us, we can't use glyphosate anymore. That means weed control ahead of winter wheat becomes different if we're planting winter wheat after edibles, which we would really like to do. Makes perfect sense. But without glyphosate in that picture, which we haven't had on most crops for several years now, we get down to either Reglone or Aragon. A couple of notes on Aragon. Remember that there is a new rate of surfactant merge with the Aragon this year. It's moved up to 0.8 liters per acre or 800 milliliters per acre. The other couple of notes about Aragon is, man, and I've seen this so many times, you really must find a sunny, warm day to spray it on. If you spray it under cool, cloudy conditions, if you spray it late in the day, early in the morning, you just don't get the same level of efficacy. It's a great burn down product if you can apply it appropriately. Sunny, warm day, middle of the day, and 30 gallons of water with both Reglone and Aragon. More water helps. We always say 20 is a minimum. I really think that we just have to go to 25 or 30 gallons to get the best possible outcome. So, yes, time it right. Make sure that you have that 90% pod color change, 30 gallons of water, 0.8 liters of merge with the Aragon, and a sunny, warm day. All right, next, tar spot. Oh my gosh, there is just a tremendous hue and cry out through the countryside about my corn is dying, it's tar spot, it's wiping it out. And there are growers considering spraying a fungicide to stop the tar spot on the 4th of September. Okay, let's back up 2 steps. Yes, I do think that in hindsight, we probably should have applied 2 fungicides to more cornfields north of London at least, because the amount of tar spot we are seeing in those areas that got consistent moisture, lots of humidity, lots of leaf wetness, even though we sprayed them at VT, there is a whack of tar spot that has come in after the fungicide lost its efficacy. We only get about 14 days. If we get really lucky, we might get a little bit more than that, 18 days, 21 days. But then the fungicide loses its efficacy. The plant has metabolized it. It's just not going to give you control. And the tar spot pressure this year is incredible. However, spraying once the corn has dent. So if you go out and you look at your corn and there are dented kernels on the cob, the chances of getting an economic response by spraying tar spot go way down. So if you're bound and determined you're going to do it, for goodness sakes, leave a check strip to prove to us one way or the other. And come back to this whole thought process around fungicides in general. You need at least 21 days after you apply the fungicide, with the crop still growing rapidly, to have any potential of economic benefit. This is true when we put something like Preaxor on alfalfa in the spring. If the disease is there, the fungicide has to stop it. There's got to be some time for the plant to benefit from the slowdown in the disease. For most of the early planted corn that we sprayed the last week of July, we are probably only 20 or 22 days away from black layer. The chances of you getting an economic response are just really slim. By the way, if the corn leaves are already infected and dead, you're not going to bring them back to life. It just is far too late. Having said that, if you are one of those growers who planted corn on June the 15th, June the 18th, and that corn is still at that sweet corn stage or has not yet started to dent, you've applied one fungicide, you're looking at it, you're saying, man, there's tar spot there. Well, a second application may be warranted, although with the dry weather in the forecast, again, we need the 7 hours of leaf wetness. So make sure you go to the Field Profit app and check your tar spot risk. There's no easy answer here other than we maybe missed the boat 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when we should have applied a second fungicide. Time will tell for the growers that did it back then, because there were a few fields applied back then. We'll find out whether or not that actually was economical. Okay, I want to move on. Fall armyworms. So they are finding high moth counts of fall armyworm in Ohio along Lake Erie. It's just a short trip from across Lake Erie for those fall armyworm moths to get to Ontario. We have seen them hit alfalfa, early planted cover crops, even early planted winter barley or winter wheat fields. So just a heads up. Get out there and scout. If you have a beautiful green field and all of a sudden the foliage is disappearing, fall armyworm, and you need to get on top of it very, very quickly. Next, a caller saying, all right, you talked about soil sample funding last week. Who do you talk to in order to get that? I haven't soil sampled for a while. I probably should again. And I'm just going like, what? You have to soil sample on a regular basis every time through the rotation, probably every 3 years. So after wheat, you soil sample. Corn, soybeans, wheat, soil sample. Corn, soybeans, wheat, soil sample. Josh saying to me, man, Pete, we soil sampled after the wheat this year. The samples are coming back higher for soil fertility than I normally would expect. Well, it could well be that, Josh, you're in an area that has continued to get moisture. And so when you continue to get moisture after the wheat comes off, normally it's dry. And if it's dry, the soil biology isn't doing much. If it's wet and warm, the soil biology is still probably releasing some of those nutrients out of the organic matter. And we do get these ebbs and flows in soil test. It's not a perfectly exact science, but it works. If they're a bit higher than normal, you just track them over time, and you look at the trend over time to know whether or not your fertility program is right. Nonetheless, who do you turn to for soil sampling dollars? It's the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association. Go to their website. It's the OFF-CAF program, the On-Farm Climate Action Fund program, and you will have to do a nutrient management plan as well to qualify for that soil sampling. And it'll have to be more intensive soil sampling. Regardless, get the soil sampling done, use the program dollars if you can, and make the right fertility decisions. You can't know what they are if you don't know what your soil samples say. Okay, going to move on. And Craig saying, Peter, do I really have to do a seed count? Can I not just go to gocrops.ca and look at the cereals information and whatever variety I have, just use that information? And the answer is no, because wherever that seed came from, the environment it grew in, it makes a big difference on the number of seeds you can get in a pound. Do genetics matter? Absolutely. So we know that Calypso winter barley has a much heavier seed weight, 1,000 seed weight, than Rosenna, for example, or any of the other winter barleys for that matter, but it still doesn't tell you what it is. Even within that variety, you can have massive swings based on the weather through the growing season. So you need to do a seed count. It's not that hard. What you need is a really accurate scale, one that will go to 1/10 of a gram if you can, certainly that one that will go to 1 gram increments. And then it's pretty simple. You count 100 seeds, you weigh them. You count 100 seeds, you weigh them. You count 100 seeds, you weigh them 3 times. If the weight comes back very similar on all 3 seed lots, then it's just a simple calculation. Then you can get that seeding rate right. Meanwhile, Dave saying, hey, Peter, so we've set our drill up because, this Wheat Pete guy keeps pushing us phosphorus with the seed, phosphorus with the wheat seed, phosphorus with the wheat seed. We can do that now. Can we reduce our seeding rate? And so actually, almost all of the research we have done on seeding rates has been done with starter phosphorus. So if you were pushing your seeding rates, Dave, higher, and I think you were, with less phosphorus with the seed, can you cut back to the standard, the recommended seeding rates? The answer is absolutely. Can you cut back below that? Probably not. But nonetheless, it is a good thought process to go through, hit that seeding rate right. Ron saying, Peter, winter barley, you want phosphorus with the seed. What about 3,000 gallons per acre of finishing hog manure? Whoa, baby, think about this for a minute. Okay. I mean, if you're Brett and you finished your winter barley seeding on September the 3rd and you put 3,000 gallons of finishing manure on, that is so much nitrogen that you are going to stimulate so much top growth that snow mold and fall disease become a real big factor and can actually limit yield. So too much of a good thing is too much. I'd way rather that we plant the winter barley maybe if you could cut that rate of manure application back to 1,000 or 1,500 gallons, but that's very tough to do. You're probably better off to put that manure, somewhere, figure out how to get it on a corn crop as opposed to putting it on in the fall with the winter barley. And with winter barley or winter wheat, if you put on too much nitrogen on early planted winter grains, they just get so much top growth it can actually be a negative. The flip side of that is that we still get bigger responses. Interestingly enough, lots of growers will say plant early, don't need a starter fertilizer. The data coming out of Kurt Steinke's program in Michigan shows the exact opposite. If you plant early, you get more benefit out of a starter fertilizer, and that's because you have time for the plant to utilize that fertilizer in the fall to stimulate more tillers. So Dave, from your question, with that phosphorus, keeping that seeding rate on the lower end of the recommended range and giving it time, if you plant early, to make those tillers, that makes sense. Ron, 3,000 gallons of finished manure, I just think you're going to stimulate way too much fall growth. Okay, Perry, same with you. Triticale, you've already put on dry beef manure. You want to get a great triticale forage crop. Awesome, but no more added nitrogen and sulfur this fall. We get enough out of the manure. And with that, I think I'll save the drainage stuff for next week's word. That's it. That's all. On behalf of the team here at Real Agriculture, this is Wheat Pete with the word for Wednesday, September the 4th. Hey, keep the feedback coming. Make your Wheat Pete 15 phone call, and we will talk to you next week. See you then.